We are finding out more and more about the running back position in particular as we continue to approach the 2024 fantasy football season with more preseason games being played. So it's time to provide you an updated top 30 running back rankings for 2024 fantasy football. And I will give away 5 free FFN hats this week if I hit 11,000 subscribers on Wednesday, August 21st. And the way to qualify to get a free hat is to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and give me your favorite sleeper defense for 2024 fantasy football. So please go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and give me your favorite sleeper defense. So with this first tier right here, it's the same as it has been all offseason. I did make a change though, not with Christian McCaffrey at 1. I know that people are scared to take Christian McCaffrey right now, and it does make sense why. Christian McCaffrey is obviously injured right now. We don't exactly have a timetable. I've seen nothing that leads me to believe though that he's going to miss the start of the season, right? So Christian McCaffrey is just, I get it, a scary 101 pick in fantasy drafts. I, in my right mind, cannot tell you guys to not pick Christian McCaffrey. The upside is just so high with him. He's the only one who can finish 100 points in fantasy past the RB2. So yeah, Christian McCaffrey's still at 1. Now, Breece Hall passed Bijan Robinson for me, and it's not because I don't like Bijan all of a sudden. When I finally lined these two guys up, and I had an honest reassessment, and I said to myself, there's no question that Breece Hall is the 3-down running back in New York. There's no question at all. It's locked and loaded that Braylon Allen's the number 2, but he's not going to eat into Breece's carries or his touches at all. With Bijan Robinson, there still is that shadow of a doubt that Tyler Algier does have touches. Now, I don't believe he will. I believe he'll have maybe a couple touches per game, but it's not going to really affect Bijan, which is why he's still in tier 1 with these guys. But it's similar to my Tyreek Hill versus CeeDee Lamb argument. We're splitting hairs here on who's greater. They're both great. Who's greater? I'll go with Breece Hall because there's no questions about his workload, whereas there is questions about Bijan's workload. Now, in this next tier right here, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, and Kyren Williams here. Now, with Jahmyr Gibbs, it's been the same all offseason for me, which is that even though he's, again, injured right now, he is expected to be ready for week 1, which is a good thing. Now, with Jahmyr Gibbs, it's obviously just the natural second-year progression that we're expecting from him, and just being on that elite offense with an elite offensive line. At the very least, top 3, possibly the best offensive line in football. So he's running behind the best offensive line, has a great quarterback who gives dump-offs frequently. Everything's just so efficient on this Detroit offense, and Gibbs is a big part of it. So Gibbs, I would take him over Jonathan Taylor because Jonathan Taylor has the possibility, much greater than Jahmyr Gibbs, of getting touchdowns sharked from him at the red zone because of Anthony Richardson. Now, Gibbs has the David Montgomery problem, which is a problem, but he will not be taking receptions away from Jahmyr Gibbs. With Jonathan Taylor, running quarterbacks don't throw the ball much to running backs. They just don't. Historically, there's data that backs this up. Most you'll see with a running quarterback is like 3 targets per game. That's just not good enough for Jonathan Taylor to surpass Jahmyr Gibbs, when I think that his touchdowns might be sharked a little bit. But I do think that Jonathan Taylor is going to have a very good year running the football. I think he'll be extremely efficient. And I still do think like he's young enough to break off big plays, which is why I like him definitely more than I like Saquon Barkley, who we'll get to in a little bit. And then with Kyren Williams, I finally feel comfortable bringing Kyren back up to where he belongs. This is really where he belongs. Like, let's not play around here. Kyren Williams did not have a run-of-the-mill season last year. He was elite last year. Totally elite in fantasy football. Numbers on the screen on a per game basis say it all. So with Kyren Williams, like the only thing that was giving me shadow of a doubt with him was the Blake Corum thing, obviously. And then also McVay does have a history of being weird with running backs. So Kyren, I was worried about for, a couple months really. At this point, it's pretty clear that he's the guy. And he's so high upside that it's like he belongs here at number 6. And honestly, we could make an argument whether he should be at the top of this tier. Now, in this next tier right here, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, and Devon Achane. So with Derrick Henry over Saquon Barkley, I've been pretty consistent about it throughout the offseason, which is that Derrick Henry, what I like about his situation is that I really do believe that he could lead the league in touchdowns rushing this year. I don't think Saquon has a chance of that. Now, they both have rushing quarterbacks, so what's the difference? The difference here is that with Saquon Barkley's quarterback, he's big. He runs in touchdowns in the red zone using the tush push. That's why Jalen Hurts' rushing touchdown totals are so much more than Lamar Jackson's. Lamar Jackson is smaller. He's not small, but he's smaller and just not as thick frame. So they worry about him more, trying to get him in on a quarterback sneak. So Lamar Jackson's touchdown rushing are not as great, which is why over the years we've seen guys like J.K. Dobbins have big touchdown years. Gus Edwards has big touchdown years. Keaton Mitchell for a while was really big. So Derrick Henry, I believe, could lead the league in rushing touchdowns. I don't believe Saquon will, and I don't think either of them are going to have a tremendous amount of reception upside. Derrick Henry, we know won't, because Lamar doesn't throw the ball. With Jalen Hurts, there's a possibility of it, but don't forget this. There's currently a running back 2 battle between Kenneth Gainwell and Will Shipley, the draft pick out of Clemson. What do they both do? They both catch the ball. So I think that there's a realistic chance that he could have opportunities sharked away from him. So I'll take the guy who I believe could lead the league in rushing. Now with Devon Achane here at the end of this tier, I just think this is purely an upside thing. Do I think he's getting 25 opportunities per game? No, I don't. I think that what we've seen throughout the preseason so far clearly indicates that Raheem Mostert may very well lead the team in running attempts on a per game basis. But with Devon Achane here, he gets the reception work. He's so explosive, more explosive than Mostert at this point, and I believe probably will get plenty of games where he leads the team in touches. So with Devon Achane, this running back system in Miami is so set up for great success. And in a half PPR format, we want to get those big explosion games. And in a full PPR format, I could make the argument that he could be above Saquon Barkley, because I think we'll get 3 to 4 catches per game out of Devon Achane this year. Now, at this next tier right here, I've got Isaiah Pacheco and James Cook at 10 and 11 at the top of the tier. So with Isaiah Pacheco, he rose up for me, and it's for very good reason. So with Isaiah Pacheco, my biggest concern with him from last year was that he barely cracked 200 carries on the ground. And he was pretty clearly the running back 1. Now, the difference last year was that he was not in on third down opportunities. The difference this year is that from everything we could see through preseason work and what Andy Reid himself has said, is that he is the 3 down back. He will do everything for us. He will be in on pass blocking downs. He will be able to catch the football, and he will obviously be our lead carry back. So that will improve his touches on a per game basis. And with this offensive upside that Kansas City has, obviously, if he gets all the work, top 10, probably top 5 upside. We're going to start out at 10 here, though, because I want to see what this equates to. Because we really haven't seen a dominant running back in Kansas City with Mahomes since Kareem Hunt. It's been a while. So we're going to keep him here at 10 for now. And with James Cook, I feel very similarly. Everything indicates that we've seen through preseason and that we've seen through Buffalo's team is that James Cook is the 3 down back. They drafted Ray Davis, maybe to take away some touches. Haven't seen that come to fruition. Frank Gore Jr., also trying to make the squad. Haven't seen anybody taking actual carries and actual touches away from James Cook. So, again, elite offense right there. Josh Allen will raise the roof of the ceiling of James Cook as a fantasy player. I think the real reason that I have him lower is because I don't think he's as likely to get rushing touchdowns that Isaiah Pacheco is. But again, they're both great options here at the top of this tier. Josh Jacobs and Travis Etienne are at 12 and 13 here. And with Josh Jacobs, he has dropped for me simply because there is history with Matt LaFleur that links him to wanting to use more of a committee running back effect. Now, I will consistently say this. He was given plenty of money this offseason, and he looks to be the lead back by a mile based on preseason work. Marshawn Lloyd is injured, and they're not giving A.J. Dillon literal meaningful touches. The only way that Josh Jacobs really gets opportunities sharked from him is if Marshawn Lloyd comes back middle of the season and looks pretty good. Now, I will say this, the reason I still like Josh Jacobs in drafts is because his price is pretty good on ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo, and Best Ball drafts through Underdog. And I think that with this offensive upside, it's too high to say to ourselves, we gotta stay away from him because of the possibility of Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd is injured right now and he's a rookie. That's usually not a good formula right away for the regular season. So Josh Jacobs is still good. Now with Travis Etienne, I've been consistently lower on him this offseason Just because we can't, why are we choosing, some people choose to ignore that throughout the entire offseason, throughout all of it, Doug Peterson, the head coach, has said consistently, yeah, we're going to take some load off of Travis Etienne. And the reason why is because he wasn't that efficient on all the work that he got last year. So if he's given 5 less opportunities, 6 less opportunities per game, yeah, he'll be more efficient, but how likely is it that he's going to have the same amount of touchdowns that he did last year? Not as likely. So I don't really get the ignoring of what the coach is actually saying about Travis Etienne this offseason, openly talking about giving him less opportunities, but I still do believe, like, with the efficiency level and with the offensive upside in Jacksonville, that Travis Etienne is still a top 15 guy. Now, to round out this tier, 14 and 15, I've got Rachaad White and Alvin Kamara. So with Rachaad White, it's purely a workload thing. The one thing that I will never get over this is the dude is just inefficient with his work. It's just a fact. Like, we can't ignore that. So Rachaad White, inefficient, but nobody's challenging him for real opportunities in this backfield. So it's a workload thing. We know the dude catches passes, so it's going to be a really good floor for Rachaad White on a fantasy points per game perspective in both half PPR and full PPR. Now with Alvin Kamara here, this is also a workload thing. I mean, Alvin Kamara is literally on a sinking ship offense. Like, that's how I feel about the Saints offense, because I've said it all offseason, it's the most stale offense in the entire league. Now, Alvin Kamara is going to benefit from this sinking ship because he will get so many targets. He will get the majority of running carries. So even if he doesn't get like 5 or 6 touchdowns on the ground, like, he's going to get so many fantasy points per game, especially in a full PPR, because of the targets that he's going to get. So sinking ship, guy's getting older, inefficient, but he's going to have the workload similar to Rachaad White. Now, the next tier here, I've got David Montgomery and Kenneth Walker at the top of this tier. So with David Montgomery, I don't think he quite fits into the tier above him because of, obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs lowering the upside. Now, the one thing that I have relied on all offseason, and I can admit I rely on this because I believe it's going to happen. With David Montgomery, we're completely reliant on the red zone opportunities. Because, yes, he will get carries through between the 20s, not as frequently as Gibbs, but what we can rely on, and I believe we can, is Dave Montgomery getting the goal line work. And if he does, he will have 10 rushing touchdowns. He will. This is an offense that breeds 10 rushing touchdown total running backs on a per season basis. So I don't worry about Dave Montgomery's role in the offense. What I worry about is that's kind of what we have to rely on here. And that's why he's a little bit lower for me, but where you get him in drafts, I'm a big fan of David Montgomery. Now with Kenneth Walker, I mean, listen, we're getting into the territory here where it's uncertain. And Kenneth Walker highlights that to a T. Kenneth Walker, I believe, is the better player. Between him and Zach Charbonnet, I'll choose Kenneth Walker any day of the week. Everything that I'm seeing from preseason games and reading is that Zach Charbonnet has a legit chance to flip this timeshare in his favor. I'm not going to believe it yet. We haven't seen it yet from preseason games, but man, Kenneth Walker, I feel like, is getting hosed in Seattle. I really do believe that because I think he's the better player. So I like him in his upside as a player, but there's no question. This dude has legit threat to his actual opportunities on a per game basis. Now, Joe Mixon and James Conner at 18 and 19 here. And I want to caution people with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is yet to suit up for the Houston Texans. Didn't suit up against the Giants in week 2 of the preseason. So we're just, a lot of people who are ranking him in the 15 to 14 to 13 range are really banking on him coming out and being who he used to be. Here's the reality. This is a 28-year-old running back on a new team that is similar to the Bengals for sure, that they're pass first, but hasn't gotten any time with this team. So I can't just assume that this is going to be a good opportunity to take him in drafts. I don't think I've drafted any of them because I don't believe in his draft price right now. And I do worry about Joe Mixon in this Houston Texans backfield just being an older guy. So yes, if he's the starter, obviously he'll be top 20 because this offense is so high upside, but I'm worried about Joe Mixon for sure. And then with James Conner here, this is a guy who I actually could easily see going to the top of this tier. Like, and even going into the next tier above him. James Conner, I get it. He's older. We're getting fatigued with him as a player. Everybody knows him. And everybody's kind of ready for Trey Benson, I think. But here's the reality. Trey Benson is not taking James Conner's workload as long as he's healthy. Now, we can bake in that James Conner misses like 2 to 3 to 4 games because he usually does. But even then, James Conner averaged 5 yards per carry last year and had over 1,000 yards on the ground. And that was also about half the season without Kyler Murray. So with a full season of Kyler Murray, even if he misses 3 to 4 games, no question he's passing 1,000 yards rushing because he will handle the workload. So when I look at his line on Underdog, 725.5 rushing yards, that's a joke to me. I'm taking the higher on this one because, again, 1,000 yards last year, missed a couple games without Kyler Murray as well. So if you're as bullish on James Conner as I am, go to Underdog using the link in the comments below. And when you use code FFN to deposit money, they will give you a 50% deposit match and up to $250 in bonus cash. So you can go play around in some Underdog best ball leagues or just do some more pick'ems to maximize your results on this one right here. So they'll throw free money at you so you can maximize the results of what you do. So you might as well take advantage of it by using code FFN today. Now, at the same time in this tier, we've got Brian Robinson Jr. and Aaron Jones at the back. Now, with Brian Robinson, I decided I'm ready to commit to Brian Robinson. I've drafted so much of him on ESPN, on Sleeper, on Underdog. I'm so in on Brian Robinson Jr., you won't even believe it. Brian Robinson Jr. is the only concern people have with him is Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler split touches with him in the second preseason game, basically. Split opportunities with him, but he only got one target and he didn't get any carries. Do you think that Brian Robinson Jr. is going to lose the carry battle between Austin Eckler this year? It's not happening. It's not happening. And in general, I'm just up on Washington players in general. I'm watching the preseason, watching Jaden Daniels, and I'm saying to myself, this is a legit guy who is going to raise the ceiling of this fantasy offense. So when I just look at Aaron Jones and I say to myself, basically a 30-year-old running back in Minnesota's offense with Sam Darnold at quarterback and Ty Chandler, who some predict will be the full-time starter in a month. How can you pick him over Brian Robinson Jr.? Ascending Brian Robinson or descending Aaron Jones? I'm taking the ascending player all day long. Now, at the next tier here, I've got DeAndre Swift and Zamir White at the front of it at 22 and 23. So with DeAndre Swift, this is kind of the last tier that we actually know who the number one is going to be, basically. We know that DeAndre Swift's going to be the number one. And again, similar to the Brian Robinson thing with Jaden Daniels, I watched the Bears and I'd say to myself, Caleb Williams is going to raise the upside of this team. He will simply do that. Now, with DeAndre Swift, the problem with him, obviously, as it always has been, is limited opportunities because he's not going to handle 20 carries per game. And also, he's on a pass-first offense for sure. Chicago will be pass-first. Now, I believe he will get opportunities through the receiving game because Caleb's not exactly like a run-first quarterback, but DeAndre Swift is not going to present the upside that I think Brian Robinson would based on carries alone. So with DeAndre Swift, I worry a little bit just naturally because of what he's done in his career, but I do think his upside is pretty good in this Bears offense. Now with Zamir White, I think it's completely the opposite. We know he's going to handle the workload. Completely know it. There's no question based on preseason action, Zamir White's the guy. But here's what we do know. This offense is not good. Gardner Minshew was named the starting quarterback by head coach Antonio Pierce. Who's excited for that? I know Minshew Mania is fun and everything. The mustache is incredible, but in actuality, he's not a very good quarterback. He's just not. So with this offense, like even with Zamir White getting the full workload on a per game basis, the upside just of them getting to the red zone and him having legitimate opportunities at the goal line is just not that high on a week-to-week basis. So he's in that tier with really these last two guys, Najee Harris and Ramondre Stevenson at 24 and 25. Now, with Najee Harris, this is a question I got asked basically as soon as we saw that Jaylen Warren went down. Now, the update that we got on Sunday is that Jaylen Warren is like his week one status is up in the air. So the question I got, obviously, naturally, is where does Najee Harris land? This is where he lands. This is factoring in Jaylen Warren not being able to play. We need to understand this about the Steelers. The Steelers' offense is atrocious. It's awful. It is not good. So, Najee Harris, the only thing I really like about his situation is that he is on a contract year, and I do believe in the player. I just believe that this team is not very good. This offense is not good, and the offensive line, if you have watched the Steelers, has looked horrible. Horrible. So, Najee's not going to be any more efficient than he has been in years past. And maybe the one thing that we can count on is more target opportunities. But even then, Najee Harris is just in a bad position. Similar to Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson, I think people are starting to get it now. I've been dogging the Patriots all offseason. They're going to be, if not the worst team, one of the worst teams in the league. With all these guys, Ramondre, Najee Harris, Zamir White, even if they handle the workload, if they're on bottom 5 to bottom 7 offense in the league, which I predict all of them will be, there's history that backs up bad running back production on bad NFL offenses. Very rarely do they finish as top 20 running backs. Ramondre is going to see that problem this year. Big time. He's going to be inefficient, and he's also just not going to have many opportunities for touchdowns. Same with Najee Harris, same with Zamir White. Now, in this last tier right here, it's a collection of guys who I actually think all of them basically have upside. What the problem is with all of them is we don't know the running back situation here. So it starts out with Javonte Williams and Chase Brown at 26 and 27. Javonte Williams, if he was named the starter tomorrow, he would be up over everybody except DeAndre Swift in the next tier. Javonte Williams, I do believe, has legitimate upside in this offense. We don't know what's happening. Jaleel McLaughlin, is he going to win the job? Is he going to share the job? What's going to happen with this Broncos offense? Based on what I've seen, Javonte's looked good in the preseason, and I've heard good things about Javonte, so I'm predicting he will win the starting job. But again, we don't know exactly what's going on. With Chase Brown, I'm seeing a lot of conflicting stories. I'm seeing Chase Brown is the guy who's more explosive, but it's going to be a true timeshare. That's what I'm seeing everywhere. So I like this Cincinnati offense so much that he's at the top of this tier, basically, with Javonte. And if they split opportunities, I think I prefer Chase Brown at this point over Zach Moss. So just because he's the younger player, looks more explosive at this point of his career, and has practiced more with the team this offseason, I'll take Chase Brown, which is, again, why I want us to get an actual answer of what's going to happen in this offense, because it's high upside. Gus Edwards at 28. If Gus is named the starter again tomorrow, he will be in the tier above him. Gus Edwards, though, we do have to factor in that he's basically 30 years old now and shouldn't get better as the season progresses. So just because of the Chargers being such a run-first operation with Harbaugh and with Greg Roman, I want a running back in this backfield. I prefer Gus as the guy, but this dude has barely practiced with the team. So again, we don't know the answer at the running back position. Depth chart says it's 1A and 1B with him and JK. I don't know. I really don't know. But I want to be in on a Chargers running back, which is why he's at 28. And then rounding it out, Tyjae Spears and Zeke Elliott at 29 and 30. Tyjae Spears, at this point, is the one I prefer with the Tennessee Titans. Everything that I've seen from the preseason with the Tennessee Titans indicates to me they're going to be pass-first operation. So with Tony Pollard, if he's the lead carry back, then I don't love the upside. Whereas with Tyjae Spears, if he's the guy who gets carries and opportunities through targets, I like that. I like that a lot because I believe this will be a pass-first offense based on everything that I've seen. I think he's the more explosive guy at this point in his career. He's the younger guy, obviously, and so I'll take Tyjae Spears in this offensive backfield. And with Zeke, look, I wanted to take Rico Dowdle. I've taken Rico more than I'd like to admit in best ball drafts. I'm slowing down on that. Everything that I've found from Rico Dowdle is that he's like either the guaranteed backup or even like on the roster bubble. Not good talk. Do not bank on Rico Dowdle having a big role in this offense. I would like him to because Zeke is older and he's just less explosive. But the reality is Dallas does have a good offensive line and they do have a good offense as a whole. So Zeke should be in the top 30, but again, this offense is just not ironed out as far as who's going to get what amount of carries on a per-game basis. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below. And if you want to see the top 30 wide receiver rankings that have been updated after week 2, click on this video right here.